Hey guys, I got another exciting video for you today. This may seem really trivial, but when I show you the complexity and the power behind all of this, I think you'll really appreciate it. So I see a lot of help on the forums with people struggling and asking how to do this. And when I tried to do it myself, when I first initially set out to do it, I thought this was going to be super easy, right? Like it's baked in and part of the platform. And while it is in a really obscure and roundabout way, it's not as straightforward as you might think. So for those of you that are familiar in the Power Apps for getting a user's name, an email, or even their picture, you can use the user function dot and then any of those actions to get that stuff. Well, equally, there's also a object called app dot, and you can get the screen name dynamically and a bunch of other stuff. So initially what I thought was that I could do app.version number. And so that would be really cool and straightforward and sensical, right? But in the most nonsensical way, to get to this, let me show you the journey. Let me see what's involved. Now, the good news is I've simplified all of this for you and boiled it down into 3 really easy steps. So let's look at the steps involved in doing this. Okay, so here are the steps. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to need to add this connector called PowerAppsforMakers. Now there's a series of 4 connectors for Power Apps for, there's the for admins, there's the for makers, and then there's 2 versions of the push notifications, which is really cool because if you're trying to build an application where you want to do push notifications because maybe they've installed the app on their mobile device, those push notifications really come in handy. So in any event, let's get back into the details as it relates to creating version numbering. So after we create the connector and put that in here, we're going to set and create 2 AppOnSTArt variables. And so when we have that set, we're just going to pop a label on the screen and we're done. So it's really simple, but there's some caveats to it. And I also want to give you, or spend the majority of the video trying to show you how to get through these really kind of complex things. Like they're not that easy to try to figure out. And unless you know some more, it's not really even advanced. I think it's in your face so much that you just don't pay attention to it and you don't really think, how would I use this in a troubleshooting way? But let me show you how to navigate through areas of the UI element to dig in and dig down and around. And when you say, you know, aha, or you have that aha moment, you might be thinking, man, there's so much cool stuff I could do in Power Apps because now I feel empowered in being able to use the platform and the IDE a much better and a stronger way. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to jump into the Power Apps experience, and I want to go over here and I want to create a new app, and I'm going to call this demo. Okay, that name demo is super important, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. Let me go back over to my document and let's grab this text that I'm going to need here. Now, before I go and copy it out, let me copy it. Now I'll show you. Let me highlight this. Remember that demo name I told you about a few seconds ago? We have to remove this and we have to put demo in its place, okay? So that's why I said we need to take note of it. But first, we need to add the PowerAppsforMakers connector. So let me go back into that area. Let's click on the database area, which I really wish they had changed this logo because it's a connector. This is where you add database connectors. You can add data sets, but it's more than just data. It's data sources and connectors. And so here's all the Power Apps, Power space apps. And if we do that, I told you about the 4 connectors. That's these right here. Well, we want the makers. The admins is for advanced stuff, but here's essentially what you can do with the makers and the admins. Let me show you this over here real quick. I'll show you the makers. So if we look at the makers, if you look at all of the different actions, we're going to use the get apps and we're going to use the get app versions in the 2 scripts, but you can publish and remove apps. You can remove connections. You can restore app versions, meaning roll things back. In other words, you can create a Power App to control Power Apps and the environments from an administrative and into the maker level. So there's all these really great things that you can do. So I really highly encourage you to check out all of the power to what you can do with these connectors. But for this particular app, we're only going to use the makers, and we're only doing this just to get the version numbers. All right, so with that being said, let's add this. It might ask me to provide authentication. If so, I'll just do that in a minute. I've already done it, so it's not going to ask me again. Okay, so now that that's set, I need to go back over to my tree view. I need to click on my apps, and I need to go from start screen to ONSTART. And here's where I need to paste in my script. So I'm going to pull this down, and now I need to remove this text. So let me put the name demo in here as I had it spelled out. And so that should be good to go there. Now let's insert a label on the screen. So I'm just showing you how to get this to work. We're going to circle back. We're going to look at what the code does, and I'll walk you through it in just a minute. But I just want to show you how quick and easy it is. If you just copy and paste and don't even care about it, you just want the version numbering so you can move on with your project. Because again, this should have been such a stupid simple thing. Who wanted to spend pretty much half a day trying to figure out how to do version numbering, right? So I got the text down here. Let's remove that. Now let's go back over to copy some more code out. And that should get popped right into here. Okay, so that's all looking good. Let's do File. Okay, the name is Demo. Let's save. So at least we get the first version of it, right? And let's let this go through its process of doing it. Unfortunately, we do have to wait about 30 seconds. All right, so that's done there. Now what I need to do is go into the application area and click on these ellipses, and I need to click Run on Start because I need to emulate. And so essentially what I need to do is run and bring back all that information. So here we go. I've got the version numbering. I'm going to left align this, and then I'm going to bump this in just a tad, and then maybe shrink this up just a little bit. Okay, so now I've got the version numbering on screen. So if that's what you came here for, guys, that's all you got to do. Copy and paste, follow those steps, and you're done with the video. Now, if you want to know how this works, stick around because we're going to get into that right now. So now let's see. Let's talk about the version numbering. That way, at least you understand what the versioning number is, and let's tear it down a little bit. Okay, so about the version numbering. It's broken into two halves. First has to do with your Canvas app and the published version. The majority of it, or the backside of it, has to do with the Power Apps release version. Okay, so again, the first X, this right here, this is going to increment each and every time you publish. Let me show you that. Now, of course, I don't have a whole lot of things published with this other than the one version, but let's save this. We'll publish it again. Okay, I actually just saved it. I don't know that it published it. Anyway, if we click on the ellipsis and we go to the details and we go to versions, we see that we have two versions, right? So I created the first one, its version. Now see how this is live? So the other one actually isn't published yet. So I could actually come over here and publish this version and promote it. So for those of you that don't even know that, well, there's an extra bonus for you, okay? So now the latest saved version that I had is published there, and if I were to go into the app and play it, the first number in that sequence should be 2 dot something or other. So there we go, version 2 dot, and then the 3.2.1. So what is that all about? So for this, we got to click on this link because this will give you more granular details about it. This is the release version for Power Apps. So if I go back into the demo, it's 320.1103.27. So here's your 321.03s, but if we come down here to 21103, which is the middle section, that's this part right here. Okay, so this will give us information about what's going on about the Make Power Apps version. Okay, we can see that this application was made with this version, and that version was first available on October the 18th, and it was worldwide available on the 1st of November. So that's some interesting information. Now the first number was 321.1103. So 321.1103. Here we go. This has to do with the all Power Apps Studio and Power Apps mobile versions. Okay, so same thing there. But in any event, the key is, just wanted to show you, this page has all of the detailed information as it relates to the back half of the release. Okay, the only thing you need to know about that's actually physically in your control, your app that you built in the Canvas app, is this first number. So when you see the long version number, just know that If all you really care about is your app version, then all you need to do is just look at that first V1, V2, V3, and if you write and develop and publish, that number's going to go. So it's not going to be impossible to get numbers in the 3 and possibly even 4 digits on the front side of the version number. So that's really good because that'll kind of help you figure out what's going on. And if somebody says, hey, I got a problem with this version number, anyway, you can kind of track all of that information out in the field. So then I told you what I wanted to do is to kind of get into the meat and the potatoes of what's going on here behind the scenes. And I got too many windows open, so I'm going to scrub all this and get rid of all that now. Let's go back into the edit. I'm waiting for that. Grab a quick drink. Okay, almost ready. All I have is a version number. You'd think the thing would load right quick, right? Okay, so let's start tearing some of this down so that we understand what's going on here. And let's go with the ONSTART. All right, so here are the 2 statements that I have. Let's break this down. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm setting an app variable called AppInfo. And what I'm actually doing is I'm calling that getApps method that I showed you. I keep calling them methods. Actions. The getApps action for the connector. PowerAppsMakers. Yep, PowerAppsforMakers. And when I do that, what that does is it brings back a whole slew of the applications, okay, right? But I only want my application. I don't need all of the other applications. I just want the information about my application. So what I needed to do is I need to filter that entire table that comes back where the display name equals demo. And the reason that I want to get this is not only because it has the information about my application, demo, I also need to grab its GUID because to use the app's versions, so this is app's version, it's the name of my variable, I have to call the getAppsVersion action. Said it right that time. And from there, we need to go ahead and grab the GUID from the previous query, which is stored in the AppInfo.name. So if I throw another label on the screen, and thank you, Shane Young, for talking about and suggesting to everybody pretty much what I also believe, and that is making sure that you just pop labels on the screens to kind of figure out where you are. So I'm going to show you a little secret and trick. I've watched a lot of Shane's videos. He might have even covered this, but if he didn't, and if you haven't seen it before, I guess this will help you. So what I want to do is I want to do AppInfo dot, and now I have all of this information available. So this is the problem. See that says name? Watch what comes back. It's a GUID. And so here's the problem. You go to the documentation. Whoops. I thought I had it bookmarked there. Let's see. Let's do this here. Grab the connector documentation again. So what I need to do is to get apps. And no, I need the version. GetAppVersions. Let me scroll to the top again. GetAppVersions. All right. So here we go. We're looking at the GetAppVersions action, and we see that the PowerAppName, is it required? True. We have to give it an app name. So you might be thinking, oh, the name of my app is demo. And so you might pass it the name demo. It's not looking for that. It's looking for the actual object name called. I had to stop and think about it. This thing gets so confusing. You might be thinking you need to pass in the physical name. It's not looking for the name. The actual name, even though they call it name, it's a GUID. So I wish they would use like maybe app AppInfo.GUID, even though AppInfo is my variable name. I just wish they would name it GUID or ID or something, because the name is just misleading. So look at all of the other additional information that we've got up here under AppInfo. We've got ID, we got name, we got type, properties. And so you might be like, what is all of this stuff, right? And so rather than leave, as Shane says, throw a label on screen, let's see what it is. That works really good for very specific cases that he talks about. But if I'm trying to explore an object, which in this case, it's massive, and you're going to see that in just a few minutes that I'm going to show you. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to, at this point, leave the label on screen so that you can use it and interact with it. But for the right now, I'm just going to pull it off. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go over this View button, and I want you to go into, when you're using the ONSTART, you're either creating variables or you're creating collections. Now, collections are pretty straightforward and easy because we know that we're going to get a table when we deal with collections. When you get a variable, to make a variable, it's set, variable name, and then you throw some stuff in an empty box. And whatever's in the empty box, it kind of takes on whatever's in the box. It's very loosely coupled. In traditional programming language, sometimes you have to declare the data type of the variable. You don't have to do that in Power Apps. It just kind of does it automatically for you. But the problem is you never know what you're going to get until you try to look at it. But here's the thing. When you look at your app, you can go into collections to see your collections. In this instance, I don't have any collections. So I can do the same thing for variables. So I look at the variable. You're like, oh, well, variables aren't that easy to use, but let me show you the hidden secret on this screen. This is so powerful. So if you get nothing, even any value from what I've shown you so far, this in and of itself is worth its weight in gold. So I don't know what the timestamp is. I'll try to bookmark it in the video. But let's go start with the app info, because that's the main table, and we can see that it's a table because of this. If I click into it, right, here's the first thing that I get. Now you might be saying, well, that's crap. It's a variable that holds a table. But then I go into it and I see that it's just a record. And the reason it's a record, because I'm bringing back first. If you looked at my ONSTART, if we go back to that real quick and go back to tree view, let's go to app. See, I'm doing the variable name. I'm doing the filtering of the table to bring back essentially one row, but then I'm forcing it to do just one row because I'm using the first function in there. So anyway, going back to the variables and then clicking into the app info, here's something that's really neat. If you're troubleshooting this variable, right? So you created the variable in the ONSTART area. But here's the thing, you might have 50 screens and you're not exactly sure where you've used the variable. Well, this is where the Uses tab. Now, I don't have a lot of information in here, but here I can see that I'm using it in the ONSTART area, and I'm also using it in that label. So if I click on it, it takes me and highlights on the screen for me where exactly that's being used. So that in and of itself is very helpful to find out where are these things at within my application. Again, click on the variable. This is the nice table that it takes you into. Indirect uses, I don't have anything here, but uses is a huge troubleshooting and QA tool, okay? And then the definitions just gives you essentially what you've got where it was defined at. Now, here's a hidden gem and a hidden secret, and this is where we're going to go down a rabbit hole. Click on this icon, and now all of a sudden, look at what we found. We went a layer inside of the record. And now we're in the record, right? And so the record has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. And so we can continue. Every time we see one of these tables, they're clickable. We can keep drilling in. So we can say, app info, okay, and the name. Remember I said we had to pass the GUID? So you saw me in the text box. I typed AppInfo.name. So here's the thing. That's the GUID. I don't have to print a label on the screen. I don't have to do all of that to see what's inside the box. I can use this method to see what's inside the box. Now it's like, okay, so if I do AppInfo.properties, click into there, now what's going to happen? So here we go, AppInfo, properties, and we have yet even more nested objects inside. but here's some columns with raw data in it, and we can see what's inside the box. App version. Oh, there's another one of those misleading labels, because when you're exploring .this, .that, seeing what you get in the label, you're like, oh, that's not it. It's really helpful to see all of this information at a glance. So I would have thought, app version, I need to do that, and I did that. And so I'm like, wait a minute, that's a date timestamp. Has nothing to do with a version. That's the app version date, and these column names are horrible. And so this is why this technique is so valuable. So I might dig into this. I don't know what this is, but when I dig into it, I'll get the full name. AppInfo.appURIs. So there's nothing there, but yet another layer. So I dig into that. Now, pay attention to the breadcrumbs, because a couple things bad can happen. First of all, ideally, if you want to go up the tree one layer, just click on App URIs. Because if you don't, you click on Record, and you can, it's going to take you all the way back out to AppInfo. And then you got to go and drill in 6 more times. And if you're many layers in, that gets annoying very quick. So just use the breadcrumb and go up 1, down 1, or up 2, or whatever you need to do. And so this is the secret to being able to drill in. Hey, what's in the tag info? Hey, look at that, publish version. That might be what I'm using on screen that I showed you earlier, right? So in any event, that's how you navigate variables, and that's how you drill into them. And more importantly, in your troubleshooting in QA, how you can find out where exactly in your app, on what screen, in what object on that screen, did you use that particular variable. So very helpful when you go into the variables and you click in, and that uses tab that's here will show you all of that information. All right, so that's it for this video. I showed you how to do the version numbers. I showed you how to break it down. I showed you how to explore into an object to try to figure out and get what you need. So anytime you use connectors or connect to an API, use these methods and techniques that I showed you here to drill in and get to the information that you need to get to. It'll be really helpful and make your Power Apps development experience much better. Okay, that's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.